Alright folks, how are you doing? I don't normally do videos about blog posts because honestly, well, why listen to me talk about something and read it out when you can just read it yourself? There's no point. But today's, well, not blog, today's news about the battle rating changes is just frankly stupid, and I want to talk about it. I'm going to go straight in. There's basically, well, there's three categories, of course, for every set of battle rating changes. There's good, neutral, bad, or, good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to classify them as. So, good changes. There's not very many. The EBR is going to 5.0. Now, it's an event vehicle. It always takes them longer to be adjusted. They have to wait for statistics, things like that. But I think it's clear to anybody who isn't just, desperate to club, 5.0 isn't enough. That's something I would say 5.3 with its current performance is a no-brainer. Fix its mobility so that it doesn't slow down to 10 kilometers an hour as soon as you hit mud. It's fine off-road, it's excellent on-road, but in mud it just sort of stops. So fix that, 5.7. My ideal situation for the EBR is take the AMX-13's top round, which is also found on the SA50, give it to the EBR, put it at 6.3, and move the AMX-13 back to 6.0. AMX-13 wouldn't be overpowered there. Not really. I don't think it ever should have moved up. But the EBR is just a straight upgrade to the MX-13 once you fix that mobility issue. Next good change, T44-100. It's going down to 6.7. There's only one other vehicle in the tech tree at 6.7, which is the SU-122-54. You've got two more premiums if you want to pair with it, which is the 34-100 and the Type 62. Although, of course, it's a little mind-boggling that the T34 and the T44 would be at the same BR, because clearly one is better. But, that's a different issue. It opens up more flexibility for the Soviets in Tier 4 without making anything overpowered. I don't think the 44-100 will be overpowered at 6.7. I actually personally quite like it at 7.0, but it'll be fine at 6.7. It's not going to break the game or anything. I'm calling it a good change. The ISU-122S down to 5.3. This is fine. It puts it at the same BR as the regular ISU-122 and a lower BR than the IS-2. Makes sense. It's a tank destroyer, it's trading a turret, so you can have the gun at a slightly low BR. That's how almost all tank destroyers do it. Fine. Heavy 122 is slightly different, of course, because that does have a turret, but it is weaker than the IS-2. 5.3 is probably about right for it. It does, of course, now sit at the same BR again as the ISU-122, which makes the tank destroyer seem less appealing, but there's only so many BRs, and I don't really think the 122 tank destroyer should be going down to 5.0. So that'll do. On to neutral changes. First one, Hori prototype, going up to 6.3. Now, I only played it for the first time recently. I think it was absolutely fine at 6.0. It wasn't game-breakingly busted, but I also think it will be fine at 6.3. You don't really see a lot of them already, and obviously now you'll see even less if it moves up. But as long as the vehicle isn't going to suffer and it's not game-breaking, fine with the change. It doesn't necessarily need to move, but it's not going to really cause it much harm. Type 75 SPH going down to 6.3. Well, there you go. Now you compare it with the Hori prototype. And you've also got the two STAs there. There's the Bulldog sitting just below them, etc. The Type 75 won't really be improved much by this. It might perform a tiny bit better as there's a few more lighter vehicles that it can fight in a down tier compared to when it's 6.7. But generally it won't change much. What it needs is its proxy rounds setting back to how they used to be, and probably HE in general just having a pass over, giving it a bit of a tweak. It's not going to break the game by moving it down, but it's also not necessarily going to make the tank more useful. It's a neutral change for me. The SU-100Y, I think it'll be fine at 4.7. It's basically just not meta. There's no real reason to drive it. You've got a huge gun, but you're also a giant target with no gun depression, no turret, long reload. Why would you drive it outside of having a bit of a laugh? That goes for a lot of vehicles in the game. BR changes won't fix it, but again, it's not going to break the game, so neutral. Now, on to the bad changes. Exterior mill down to 4.3. Now, this one suffers from the same thing as the SU-100Y. It's just not a meta vehicle. Long reload, not great armor, no turret, all that to pay for a big gun that you don't really need. It's not going to break the game at 4.3, but unlike the SU-100Y, I think this is just too much. That's the same gun, not the same shells exactly, but it's the same gun that's used on the Mouse at 7.7. It's the same gun that's on the Jagdtiger. It's just pure overkill. There's no reason for it to be at 4.3. It's not going to make it any more usable. It's not going to, it's not going to suddenly make it a godly vehicle because all the same drawbacks are still there. Lowering its BR just like is normally to either improve the performance of armor, which it doesn't have, or to allow it to pen things, but it could already do that. It could pen everything it fought anyway. Moving it down to 4.3, what it does do is completely screw over anything that might have tried to rely on armor in the sort of the 3.3 plus range. Is that really what we want? That is an insanely slippery slope. I mean, think of all those KVs. Not that there wasn't plenty of stuff that could pen them anyway, but they could pen them, at certain angles or certain ranges. The 128 is just going to ignore every single resemblance of armor. That's too far. It's not going to make the tank perform well, it's just going to make people who are on the receiving end absolutely hate the game. Next change, T80B. I don't really play a lot of top tier, but from what I can see and from what I can understand from talking to other people, this is, again, just stupid. For the opposite reasons to the ones above. Its armor is going to, well, in a down tier against an 8.7, even if there's been power creep lately, it's going to be ridiculous. There's no reason for that to be that low. Come on, stop it. That's just going to have a ripple effect where now something at like 9.0 struggles against it, so that gets down tiered, and then that clubs the thing below it, and then that gets down tiered, and yeah, just no. T20 up to 6.0. No reason. For one, it'll be a worse T25 at the same BR. Secondly, it's fine at 5.7. I mean, yeah, stabilizers are strong, no doubt, but it doesn't need to be 6.0. That's going to fight 7.0s now? Really? It's not only just that it can now see a 7.0 in an up tier either, but it means it will see 6.7s even more often than it already does with a 76mm. No, just no. Object 120 down to 7.3. This thing started life at 8.0. Now I know that's not a huge drop compared to some other vehicles, but it started life at 8.0 when the highest vehicle were at 8.7. And then within a couple of weeks, they went up to 9.0. Everything else around it went up 0.3 as well, and the Object 120 dropped to 7.7. So it went from sort of regularly fighting against the top vehicles to not even being able to see them. And now it's going to be in a down tier fighting things like Super Pershings, the regular Pershings, the STAs. I mean, not that they really rely on armor anyway, do they? But that's it's a case of it's not a meta vehicle. Now this one does have a turret, but it's something that's designed for insanely long-range combat. It's a longish reload with a big gun. Lowering its BR isn't going to really help. It already pens every single thing it meets, and everything it meets can pen it. How is putting it at a low BR going to improve its performance? What it is going to do is screw over everything that it meets. BRs aren't about comparing it to the thing at the same rating. It's about limiting what it can see. It can pen everything it could see in an up tier at 8.7. It didn't need to move. Moving isn't going to somehow make it a better vehicle. It's just going to screw over all the new things that get to meet it in an up tier. Panther F to 5.7. We've already got the A at 5.7. I guess this is more of a side grade than anything else. But come on, it doesn't need to be 5.7. It's fine. I mean, there was once a time where I advocated for the Panther D to be 5.3 because I thought of it kind of like a jumbo. It was an upgun jumbo to me in that its front was really tough. It was extremely weak from the sides. It was an upgunned jumbo. But now it's at the same BR as a jumbo. So, and this is the Panther D, of course, I'm talking about. But I completely changed my stance a long time ago on that, and the Panther D should have never gone to 5.3, which means the other Panthers should not be going to 5.7. I know, obviously, I come from a slightly different position to a lot of people, but I don't understand why the Panther A was at 5.7 already. So the Panther F going down to join it is, well, to me, this is a bad change. I get a lot of other people might like it. I think the A should have gone back up, or the A and the D should have gone back up, not the other way around. There's not too much to say there. This is mostly personal preference. I think it's stupid. Jagdpanzer 4.5 to 6.3. Again, it's not really a meta vehicle. It's not a bad one. The only reason I don't particularly like driving it is because the zoom is insane. It's not a particularly bad vehicle. I don't think it belongs at 6.3. It's not going to break the game, but it's just another slippery slope that I don't want to go down. There is one upside, however, which is finally lower than the RU251. I wish they'd gone about it the other way by moving the RU up to 7.0 or 7.3, not the other way around. Centurion Mark 1 to 6.0. Centurion's a decent vehicle. The current state of its APDS round allows it to just go straight through a Panther's upper plate. If the Panthers were going back up to 6.0, I'd be okay with this. It does give the Black Prince an additional vehicle to go in its lineup, but it's not like you couldn't use the Scent with the Black Prince already if you decide to drive it. You might now actually see Black Princes on the battlefield because, you know, wanting to drive the Scent now actually has a reason to put the Black Prince in their lineup, whereas before, if they decided to drive the Scent, the Black Prince would obviously force it up. It allows the Black Prince to actually maybe be driven, but I don't think that'll really change. You barely see Centurion Mark 1s since the turret got nerfed a while back. I don't think this is a needed change. It's just making Britain tier 4, you know, worse. Really. There's now basically a big gap in the middle between about 5.3 and that 7.0 lineup where nothing British really exists. And now to the final stupidest change in a sense. The M48A2C, this is the German M48, is going to 6.7. The American and Chinese versions are at 7.3. Now, I do advocate the idea that identical vehicles in different tech trees should not be at the same BR. Look at the Churchill Mark IIIs in the German and British, or the KV-1B and KV-1E between the German and Russian trees. The German ones perform flat out better in those cases because they meet different opponents. They don't get shot up by the same guns, so they perform better. Now, in that case, they should definitely be at different BRs. And the same kind of applies here. I mean, that these are perfectly capable of being a different BR, and that's fine. But it's again the sort of one rule for one nation and a different rule for another. At low BR, it would result in the German ones being higher. And apparently, you know, no, they should be at the same BR because they're the same vehicle. We'll keep it. But at higher BR, where it's the German one that gets to benefit from it, I was going to say I'm not suggesting there's a German bias here, but no, there is absolutely a German bias. The German M48 should not be 2 steps lower than the identical vehicle in the other tree. Either unlock all of these copied vehicles, so there are different BRs and different trees, or stick this back to the same BR and stop pretending, you know, stop making it up as you go along and stick to one rule. Regardless, the M48 should not be at 6.7. It's far too good for 6.7. You know, put it back 7.3. Honestly, outside of the APCR stock grind, the M48 was fine at 7.7. It wouldn't be now, of course, because now we have stupid things like the T55 AM1 at 8.3, which is ridiculous, but that's another matter. 7.3, it's fine. Leave it at 7. Or rather, put it back to 7.3. It shouldn't be going down. You don't want to meet the M48 when you're driving a 76 Sherman or a T-34-85. It'll die from a side shot, but come on, man. There is one more change, which technically is the worst change in the list, and that's the KV-85 moving to a 5.0, because it's already at 5.0. Are they even paying attention? Anyway, yeah, that's my thoughts on the BR changes. I'm sure there'll be disagreement. Not on everything. I think the Panther F is probably the most controversial one here, but yeah. There's more bad than good here, and the bad... Like, there's always, I think, more bad than good in the BR changes for the past few years. But these bad ones are exceptionally bad. So I just felt I had to say something on it. Now, I did say I would touch on one more thing before we finish, actually, which is things like the Stura, the SU-100Y, the ISU-122, the Object 120. They're not meta. That's why they do badly. They're not meta. What's the reason for them not being meta? Well, it's because they're tank destroyers. Now, obviously, the Object has a turret, you know, the Stura doesn't have armor, etc. But generally, tank destroyers are designed to sit at range. They have a narrow angle of fire. The further away you are, the more actual terrain that narrow angle covers. Tank destroyers are designed to sit far away, covering certain areas of the map. War Thunder's maps have a very high tendency towards being a small urban environment. Destroyers don't work well in small urban environments unless you use something like the M18. They're just not designed for it. They're not meta. They will never be meta with the current map. So no amount of lowering BR is going to make them work. It's the problem. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next video.